Hello, everyone, and welcome to Empath Soul. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Robyn Iacuone. Hello.
Hi, Sabine. Thank
Thank-
you for inviting me.
Thanks so much for being on board today.
Pleasure.
Robyn, thanks. Robyn is a certified life coach with over 25 years of experience in the field of personal development, and she specializes in working with empaths and highly sensitive people and teaches her clients the tools to reach their goals effectively and efficiently. And today we are going to plunge into something that is not talked about enough in the empath world or even in the spiritual development world at large, and that is shadow work. And I really look forward to this conversation.
Thank you. Yeah.
Robyn, could you start us off by telling us, sharing with us some of your own path towards understanding that you are a highly sensitive person and an empath, and what brought you to work with people just like our viewers?
Great. Thank you. Um, I've always known that I was different in the family that I grew up in. And back, 25 years ago, when I started to learn about rebirthing and past life therapy, the term was light worker. So, always known about that. and and this is probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I saw a YouTube clip on what is an empath, and I
Mhm.
just sat there and thought, "That's me, that's me, that's me." I
Love
then showed, and then I showed it to my husband, and he goes, "That's you, that's you, it's you."
The
So
connection.
yeah, and so I just found everything I could, study everything I could about the empath trait of I want to know more, and I came across Dr. Michael Smith
Mhm.
and did some work with him and did his Empath Academy course. That was 6 years ago. And then just because I was pretty much over working in the business world, I decided to become a certified life coach. So that's where my business started. And I've been still studying as much as I can and learning as much as I can and working with some amazing people. So it's a real joy. Yeah.
Mhm. Beautiful. And when did you start getting that interest for the shadow work, which is, if you want to give us an idea of what you mean by that so that people, our viewers, can have a sense of um, what we're talking about right here.
I've heard the term. I think we've all heard the term and thought, oh, what's that all about? And it sounds a bit scary.
Yeah.
Um, I was invited to do a course a couple of years ago, and it involved a lot of group work, and that didn't feel right to me. I don't think shadow work is a group work situation, especially with empaths, because if you're doing a group, we're all going to be bouncing off each other emotionally, and that would be a great distraction. So, my belief is that it's a one-on-one thing to do and very individual. So, that course, it just didn't feel right to me.
Mhm.
So then I came across a course that was very Jung orientated, and he's the guy that invented or discovered shadow work. So I did that course 6 months ago. So I've been practicing with other students within that course, and it just feels very natural to me, the
Mhm.
kind of work.
And
Yeah.
if you were to define shadow work for people who aren't really sure what the term means, how would you define it yourself?
It's the part of us that we suppress. And a lot of our shadows developed in our childhood, usually around about the age of 5. So when like I use the example that it could be your negative traits, and also can be your positive traits. So an example with empaths is that, as a little 5, 6-year-old, we could tell that someone was lying, and empaths are very good at that. So we voiced that opinion, and our parents told us not to be rude. You don't not to do that. So that would have been a bit of a shock for us. And then we would have got, okay, I can't express that part of myself because when I do, my parents withdraw love, and that's how the shadow is created. So it's in a situation that we do something when we're a child, and we get a bad result from our parents because our parents' love is the ultimate for us. It's just it's our survival that we have our parents' love. So if we do anything and we get that reaction, we'll then suppress it, saying it's a bad part of me. I don't want to be that. I want to I can't express that. So we push it down and we think we kind of push it away from us, but we don't. It gets suppressed and becomes a part of our shadow.
Mhm. An imprint in the body also.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, we when we make judgments on other people, that's giving us a clue what's in our shadow. When we find ourselves reacting in a way, when we're very emotional, when we're reacting in a way that is not natural to us. So, like the emotional outbursts that we have, and we feel like we're not in control of our actions, that's the shadow in full play.
Mhm. And a word that's coming up for me a lot in connection with what you've just described is the need for protection. Is that something that you find that is how would you describe it showing up in the emotional world of empaths and highly sensitive people?
A lot of empaths think they need protection. And we can't protect ourselves from something that we're a part of.
Yeah.
So it's about, I think, a lot of shadow work and clearing out those parts of us helps us to be more emotionally stable and stronger. So we find that I just don't work with feeling that I need protection.
Mhm.
If I go out in the world and I'm feeling vulnerable, I just ask myself, what do I need to learn here? What is this showing about myself? If I'm feeling the need to protection, where does that come from?
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's probably in the shadow.
Yeah. And in terms, so you were saying that this is more appropriately done in a one-on-one setting, especially for empaths. Could you give us some sense of how to, tap into that shadow work in a more conscious way? How to bring light to those events and those things, emotions and memories that we've um, buried into ourselves?
That's a great question. Yeah, because we're trying to make conscious the unconscious part of us. So how do you do that? So one really good way to do that is to look at ways that when you're out in the world or even in your home life, if there's something that triggers you, so that the term, oh, that really gets under my skin.
Hmm.
So that you're making a judgment on someone, whether they're right or wrong. And it goes both ways. If you see someone that you really admire, that's showing you the parts of you that you don't recognize. So if you think you go out there and you just meet someone, you think, oh, this person's so caring. She's amazing. She's really caring. That's your spirit showing you that an unconscious part of yourself that you need to be aware of how caring you are.
Hmm.
So even if you have a little notebook and you start writing down the judgments you have on people, whether positive or negative, and then write them down, and then when you've got some time, you can sit down and think about that.
It's always a question of finding our patterns.
Absolutely, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So the inner child is where it all begins. So even if you can spend time, and we'll do that a little bit of that a little bit later, and just look at how she was, how and realize how connected or unconnected you are with your inner child, because she or he is very important part of your makeup.
Hmm. And sometimes we have this kind of skewed idea of the inner child um, either being overtly joyous and something to connect to like lift us up and reconnect us to some positives, and sometimes at the opposite, it's more of the wounded inner child.
Mm.
I think it's really important if you could talk to us about the whole spectrum that goes on, just as we were talking about um, as adults when we're reacting to something, it can be in positive and negative. Can you tell us a little bit more about your view on your understanding of the inner child and how you work through that energy?
Okay, so it's about connecting and giving that child a voice as well, because one thing I do find is that when people do connect with their inner child, they're quite surprised.
Hmm.
And the child has got a lot of emotion to it needs to release,
Hmm.
because we have our life that we're adults and we're responsible and all that, but then there's this really important part of us that needs the voice and also needs to show us our innocence, our playfulness. So giving that inner child a chance to express itself can show us a lot more about who we are than just about being joyful.
Yeah.
Because we have positive emotions and we have negative ones, and it's not just about being focused on the positive emotions all the time, because that's what's called spiritual bypassing. I love that term. And we can't be positive all the time, because just because it's a negative, what we judge as being a negative emotion and a positive emotion doesn't mean that they're just emotions. So we just got to recognize also the ups, the sad, the angry part of us, as well as the joyful part.
Yeah, we still see that so often and too much of this spiritual bypassing that you were talking about. And is that something that you encounter somehow in even greater amount, do you think, among empaths and highly sensitives?
Yeah, because we don't understand who we are, and we're trying to protect ourselves all the time. We're trying to, feel good all the time. And there's a lot of negative emotions out there. And as empaths, we absorb, we go out and we catch the train to work, and we're feeling everybody's stress. So we want to, you know, protect ourselves and feel better about ourselves. But we can't just suppress those emotions and feel good. There's a lot of positive thinking. You know, everyone's got to be thinking positive, and that's ignoring our shadow. And also, when we ignore our shadow, it gets stronger.
Yeah, that's really the band-aids to doing the work of recognizing what is ours and what isn't ours, and then
Yes,
in our
absolutely.
stuff, which is our concern, to figure out what's in our emotional body, what hurts are we still holding on, especially from infancy, which is a time where we function purely emotionally and
Yes,
energetically.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So if we've got a lot of suppressed anger, we're going to be triggered quite easily when we are in the energy of angry people. So if we learn to find out where that anger came from, and understand why we chose the decision that caused us to be angry, then we're going to get less triggered by other people's anger. So it's really about a really good job for empaths is to clear out this stuff, and then we're not going to get so triggered out there in the world, and then we're going to be able to find our true selves. And when we do that, we can help others to be in that energy as well.
There's really some detective work waiting to be done.
Yes.
And so to help us on this discovery of the inner child, you're going to accompany us through a meditation. Would you like to introduce what you're going to share with us?
Sure. So this is just a simple little exercise that we can do, and when you've gone through it, it's a new tool that you can use, and any time that you want to, when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's a really good exercise to get connected to yourself and get some more learning about who you are. So it's simple and easy to do, and you can do it anytime.
Sounds fantastic. So please lead us.
Okay, so everyone please take a nice, slow, deep breath. Close your eyes and just take some nice, slow, deep breaths. Bring yourself into the current moment. Nice, slow, deep breaths. And just allow yourself to focus on your heart space, which is physically just above your heart. So bring your awareness down into your heart space and take a nice, slow, deep breath. And what I'd like you to do now is to imagine yourself in a beautiful place. It may be a place that you go to often. It may be by the beach, sitting down on the sand and looking out across the waves on a beautiful sunny day. It might be in the rainforest, sitting next to a little creek with some water. You can hear the water rustling. Or it might be in a beautiful garden, feeling the sun shining on you. And you're sitting there feeling quite relaxed. And then you notice in the far off distance a figure walking towards you. You don't know who it is yet. You just see a person slowly walking towards you. You just take a moment to focus on that person coming to you. And as they get closer and closer, you notice that it's a child, a little child, walking closer and closer. And as they get closer, you suddenly realize that it's you. It's you as a little child of about 5. You see her coming, see her or him coming towards you, and they've got a big smile on their face. And that makes you smile as well. And now this beautiful child is standing right in front of you. And what I want you to do is look into her eyes as she or he looks into your eyes. And just connect on that visual level. And now I want you to imagine from your heart space a line of golden light connecting from your heart to their heart. And you can see that connection. So I want you to feel that connection from your heart to their heart. And now I'd like you to see yourself, put your arms out and have this beautiful little child fall into your arms. And I want you to hold them tight and just feel the love between the both of you. Just take a couple of moments to feel that. Just feeling the love. And now that there's a good connection between the both of you, I want you to ask your inner child, is there anything that she wants you to let you know? Is there something that she needs to tell you today? And just give yourself a moment to allow yourself to listen or to feel. You might be aware of a message now or a feeling now, or this message or feeling may come later. Whatever works is right for you. Now, I want you to tell that little child of yours that you love them, that you are listening to them, and that you are there for them. And just give them a nice warm cuddle again. And now I want you to see that little child sitting on your lap. And you start to notice that this little child starts to shrink. They get smaller and smaller until you find that they're sitting in the palm of your hand. Now, what I want you to do is to place this little child, just see yourself putting this child into your heart so that they are with you all the time and you are with them all the time. And now take a nice deep breath. And when you're ready, come back to the room and open your eyes.
Thanks so much for walking us through this.
Lovely. Yeah. How does that feel?
Very peaceful and
Mm.
giggly.
So, like I said, it's an easy thing to do. You can just, whenever you're feeling stressed, you can just sit somewhere quietly and just imagine what we just went through and just ask that inner child, is there anything that they want to share with you? And it will give you clues about what's really going on for you.
Yeah. And the open-ended way of asking that is beautiful because it can be something in any range. And yeah, it just opens up the possibility, as we were talking, of something popping up from our own childhood that we've um, quashed inside, or
Mm.
something just a positive, you know, insight and yeah,
It's
beautiful.
a part of you, and it can also come as a feeling.
Hmm.
You can get a feeling from that child, and then you can explore that feeling. Even, possibly journal about what that feeling is, and dive into it. And it's about making the unconscious conscious.
Beautiful.
It's pretty powerful.
What are further steps that people can take around working with the inner child?
It's I take that was a very short part,
Mhm.
but I take clients through deeper processes of going into the child and finding out and exploring what she's feeling. But just connect, like, another thing you can do is when you go to sleep at night, just imagine that little inner child coming to you and doing the same process of holding them and asking them, but taking more time to do so.
Mhm. More
And she
questions.
might, sorry.
More questions?
Yeah, and you can also ask her, what does she need?
Mhm.
She might say, I really want some chocolate. Especially if you're a person that's really strict with your diet,
Mhm.
that can affect the inner child that's saying, oh, this is really boring. It's usually the inner child that says when you're on a diet, this is really boring food. I want something yummy. And listen to it and play it and do things that, even if you can watch children and see the way that they play and give yourself that space to be childlike as well, the innocence, and to bring, it's, about bringing that inner child closer to your awareness and remembering. A lot of people don't remember childhood, so there's a really big clue. There's
Yeah,
reasons why,
absolutely.
so it's about exploring.
Mhm. I have the absolute privilege of working with even newborns and young babies. So that connection that we lose to, the simplest, most direct connection to our higher self and to source in a much larger way, it disappears at some point for most of us. But it's
Yeah,
there if we look for it in the
yeah.
babies, and they can remind us.
Yeah, so babies are about learning how to survive. I'm in this place, how do I survive? And it takes a few years while they
Yeah.
understand that for themselves. So the age of 5 is a crucial point. So if
Mhm.
you're trying to focus on a part of your child that you need to, try and aim for around the age of 5, because a lot of things happen around that age.
Yeah. Thanks for
Yeah,
the pointer. That was so beautiful. Thank you.
you're
And
welcome.
to take our viewers further, you are offering a free shadow work session. Could you tell us more about that, please?
Yeah, so we can, the link takes you to my contact page. So just contact me, just mention that you're on this beautiful event, and I can book in a session that will go for an hour, and we can start to do the shadow work so you can experience, at least one awareness, one conscious awakening.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm currently writing an article on it.
Mhm.
So that I'll finish that in the next few days, and that will be up on my website shortly.
Fantastic. Just more to explore.
Yes.
Thanks so much for walking us through this side of our being. Are there any any extra bits and pieces that you'd like to share with us before we say goodbye?
Um, yeah, so just watch your judgments. Have a look at what they really mean. It can, shadow work can be a bit daunting
Mhm.
because these things have been suppressed for a long time, but with through guidance, you can really get so many lessons from understanding, your patterns, as you mentioned before, why you keep doing the same thing over and over again. And it's something in the shadow that, you can clear out, and it doesn't have to be something that takes forever, like it takes months and months to get over it. If the right guidance is there, then it's really easy just to see it, acknowledge it, become aware of it. It's the first big, huge step, is awareness of why you've chosen to create that in your life.
Mhm. The huge difference between clearing, getting consciousness of something and clearing versus delving into it for hours or days or years.
Oh no, yeah, it doesn't. You can do that if you want, but I just think it's much easier just to, become aware, and that's all. And it just kind of follows when you have that awareness, you start seeing things differently because of that awareness, and that's where you get the real lessons from it as well.
Mhm. Beautiful. Thanks so much for being with us today, Robin.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for doing this event. And we hope that everyone listening gets some valuable learnings from it as well.
Mhm. Thank you.
Excellent.